You don't need 10 new habits. You need to stop lying about the ones you already have. Because right now, today, you are already living by habits, they're just habits you never chose. Somebody else installed them. A phone company. A childhood. A tired version of you from 4 years ago. And they're spending your life for you while you sleep. Think about that for a second. Not one of us wakes up and decides, fresh, how to live. We wake up and we obey. We obey the reach for the phone. We obey the snooze. We obey the same breakfast, the same route, the same 3 thoughts we've been thinking since we were 19. And we call that a life. But it isn't a life. It's a rerun. It's a rerun you inherited and never questioned, and the terrible thing about a rerun is that it feels exactly like living while you're inside it. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. The cost of leaving this alone is not that your life gets worse. That would be easier. If your life got visibly worse, you'd fight. You'd wake up. No, the cost is that your life stays exactly the same while your capacity to change it quietly shrinks. Every year you don't choose, choosing gets harder. The grooves get deeper. The excuses get more sophisticated. At 25 you say, I'll figure it out. At 35 you say, this is just who I am. At 45 you don't say anything at all, because by then you've made peace with it, and peace with the wrong thing is the most expensive thing a person can buy. So let me give you the picture I want you to carry through everything I'm about to say. Your life is a house you're building while you live in it. Not a house you'll build someday. Not a house someone hands you. You are, right now, at this moment, laying brick. Every choice is a brick. Every habit is a wall going up. And here's the part that should get your attention, you're building whether you're paying attention or not. The bricks don't stop. A person who never thinks about their habits is not a person who isn't building. They're a person building blind, in the dark, with whatever material happens to be in reach. And then one day they walk through their own house and wonder who designed it this way. 10 habits. 10 load-bearing walls. That's what we're doing here. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of these 10 is going to make you uncomfortable. You'll know which one when we get there, because you'll want to skip it. Don't. That's the wall your whole house has been missing. Let's start with the first one. Number 1. Win the first 11 minutes. Here's a struggle you know. The alarm goes off. And before your feet touch the floor, before you've had a single thought that belongs to you, you've already been fed. Someone's opinion. Someone's crisis. Someone's highlight reel. 3 notifications and a headline, all of it landing in the softest, most suggestible mind you'll have all day. And then you wonder why by 10 in the morning you feel behind, anxious, and vaguely dissatisfied with a life that was perfectly fine at midnight. Most people fail at this and they think the failure is discipline. It isn't. It's sequence. Your morning isn't broken because you're weak. It's broken because you gave away the first move. In any contest, the first move sets the terms, and you handed yours to a device engineered by people whose job is to hold your attention longer than you meant to give it. That's not a fair fight. That's not even a fight. So here's what you do today. Not tomorrow, today, tonight, when you set your alarm. Move your phone to the other side of the room. That's it. That's the whole intervention. Not an hour of journaling. Not cold plunges. Just distance. Because the habit isn't check the phone, the habit is reach without deciding, and you break a reflex by making it inconvenient, not by making yourself heroic about it. Then, in those first 11 minutes, you do 3 things, in this order. You get vertical. You get water. You get one sentence. The sentence is this: what is the one thing that, if I do it today, makes the day count? Not 10 things. 1. Say it out loud if you can. Write it on paper if you have paper. 11 minutes. That's the toll you pay to own the day. And you'll notice something strange within a week. The day doesn't just start better, it ends better, and you won't be able to explain why. But there's a reason for that. And it has to do with something that happens later, around 3 in the afternoon, that almost nobody accounts for. Hold on to that. We'll come back to it. Number 2. Make the promise small enough to keep. Here's the pattern. You get inspired. Maybe tonight, maybe listening to this. And inspiration is loud, so it makes you generous. You promise yourself an hour of exercise, a chapter a day, no sugar, up at 5. You make a promise size to how you feel right now. But you won't execute that promise while you feel like this. You'll execute it on a Tuesday when you're tired, when work went badly, when nobody's watching and nothing's inspiring. And that Tuesday version of you was never consulted. So you fail. And here's the real damage: it isn't the missed workout. It's what the failure teaches you about yourself. Every broken promise is a deposit into a belief that says, I don't do what I say. And a person who doesn't trust their own word has to fight themselves before they can fight anything else. Most people respond by promising bigger next time. More discipline. Stricter rules. That's like a man who keeps falling off a ladder deciding the answer is a taller ladder. The resolution is almost insulting in its simplicity. Cut the promise until you cannot fail. Not until it's easy, until it's laughable. 2 push-ups. 1 page. 5 minutes of the thing you're avoiding. And here's the rule that makes it work: you are not allowed to do more on the first week, even if you want to. Especially if you want to. Why? Because you're not training the muscle. You're training the identity. You're rebuilding a credit rating with yourself, and credit is built with small loans repaid on time, not one enormous loan you default on dramatically. 2 push-ups every day for 30 days will change your life more than an hour of exercise you do 4 times and abandon. That's not motivation talking. That's arithmetic. But small promises have a hidden enemy, and it isn't laziness. It's something that shows up around day 9 or 10, and it takes almost everyone down. Let's talk about it. Number 3. Learn to survive the boring middle. Day 1 is exciting. Day 2, you're proud. By day 9, something goes flat. The novelty is gone, the results haven't arrived yet, and you're standing in a long gray hallway between where you started and where you're going, with no scenery on either side. This is where nearly every good intention in human history goes to die. Not at the start. Not at the hard part. In the boring part. Because we can tolerate difficulty, difficulty feels meaningful. What we can't tolerate is doing something meaningful that feels like nothing. And here's why most people fail. They interpret boredom as a signal. They think, if this were right for me, it would still feel exciting. So they quit, and they go looking for a new plan, a new method, a new system, and the new one feels amazing for exactly 9 days. That's the loop. That's the whole trap. People aren't lazy. People are addicted to beginnings. So here's your move. Before you start anything, decide in advance what the boring middle will look like, and give it a name. Say to yourself, around day 9, this will get flat. That's not failure. That's the hallway. And I don't quit in hallways. Then build one thing that carries you through it, a visible record. A calendar with an X. A note on your phone. Something dumb and physical you can look at. Because in the hallway, feelings won't motivate you. Only evidence will. You'll look at 11 X's and think, I'm not throwing away 11 X's for one bad Tuesday. Boredom becomes proof. Flatness becomes progress. The hallway becomes the house. And in that hallway, you're going to discover something about your energy that almost nobody teaches, the thing I mentioned earlier about 3 in the afternoon. Number 4. Protect 1 hour of your sharpest thinking like it's your child. Here's the truth about your day. You do not have 12 productive hours. You have somewhere between 90 minutes and 3 hours of genuinely sharp, creative, difficult work capacity, and the rest is maintenance. Answering. Reacting. Cleaning up. And here's what almost everyone does. They spend the sharp hours on the maintenance work, email, messages, small decisions, because that work is easy to start and gives instant relief. Then they arrive at the hard, important, life-changing work at 3 in the afternoon, when their mind is a wet towel. And they conclude they're bad at the hard work. You're not bad at it. You brought a dull blade. That afternoon crash isn't a character flaw. It's a schedule flaw. You spent your best fuel on things that any moderately awake version of you could have handled. So today, do this. Find your sharpest window. For most people it's within 3 hours of waking, but watch yourself for a week and find yours honestly. Then take 1 hour inside it and make it untouchable. Phone in another room. 1 tab. 1 task. The hardest, most important, most avoided thing you own. 60 minutes. And when you finish, notice something. You'll feel a specific kind of calm that no amount of scrolling ever gave you. That calm is the feeling of a person who is no longer at war with their own to-do list. 1 protected hour a day is 250 hours a year on the thing that actually matters. That's not a habit. That's a career. That's a book. That's a business. But protecting that hour requires you to say a word most people are terrified of. Which brings us to the wall I told you would make you uncomfortable. Number 5. Learn to disappoint people on purpose. Here it is. This is the one you'll want to skip. You know this struggle. Someone asks. And before you've even evaluated it, you feel the pull, the small dread of being seen as difficult, unhelpful, selfish. So you say yes. You say yes to a meeting, a favor, a project, an evening you didn't want. And you tell yourself it's kindness. It isn't kindness. It's fear wearing kindness as a coat. Here's why most people never fix this. They think the goal is to become comfortable saying no. It never becomes comfortable. That's the secret. You're waiting for a feeling that doesn't arrive. Confident people aren't people who feel no resistance, they're people who act while the resistance is happening. And understand what's really at stake. Every yes you didn't mean is an hour stolen from the promise you made yourself. You cannot protect your sharpest hour, keep your small promise, or walk the boring hallway if your calendar belongs to whoever asked most recently. Your time isn't going to your dreams. It's going to whoever was bold enough to request it. So here's the practice. Today, say no to one thing. 1. It can be small, that's better, actually. And use this exact structure: gratitude, decline, no explanation. Thanks for thinking of me, I can't take that on. Then stop talking. Don't fill the silence. The urge to explain is the urge to be forgiven, and you don't need to be forgiven for owning your own life. Do that once and something shifts. You'll realize the disappointment you feared is much smaller than you imagined. People adjust in about 4 seconds. You've been paying years of interest on a debt of 4 seconds. Now, with that hour protected, there's a question of what you put into it. And what most people put in is the thing that keeps them exactly where they are. Number 6. Trade consumption for creation at a ratio. You are consuming more information in a week than your great-grandparents consumed in a decade. And here's the unsettling question: are you 10 times wiser than them? 10 times more capable? Or does it just feel like progress? Because consuming feels almost identical to growing. That's the trap. You watch the video about the business. You read the thread about the training program. You feel the warm rush of understanding, and your brain files it under "I did something." But nothing moved. The house didn't gain a single brick. You just stood in the yard admiring blueprints. Most people fail here because they think they're not ready to create yet. One more course. One more book. But readiness isn't upstream of creation, it's downstream. You do not learn and then do. You do, badly, and the doing teaches you what the learning could never explain. So set a ratio and hold it. For every hour you consume something about your goal, spend an hour producing something toward it. Write the paragraph. Send the message. Make the ugly first version. Record the bad take. And today, specifically, publish, send, or show one thing. Not a good thing. One thing. The standard is shipped, not good, because good is what happens on version 11 and you can't get to 11 without one. Here's the reframe I want you to keep. Information you don't apply isn't knowledge. It's decoration. Now, when you start creating, something ugly happens almost immediately, and how you handle it determines everything. Number 7. Change your relationship with the word failed. You make the thing. You send it. And it doesn't land. Nobody responds. The workout doesn't show results. The conversation goes badly. And a voice arrives fast, familiar, fluent, and it doesn't say that didn't work. It says you don't work. That's the switch, and it's the difference between people who compound and people who reset. Most people don't quit because of failure. They quit because they translate the event into a verdict about themselves, and no one keeps showing up to a courtroom where they're always the defendant. Here's the resolution, and it's mechanical, not inspirational. Every time something doesn't work, you write one sentence: the result was X. The next experiment is Y. That's it. No adjectives. No character assessment. You have removed yourself from the sentence, and you cannot be crushed by a sentence you're not in. Failure becomes feedback. Feedback becomes direction. Direction becomes distance covered. And the person who runs 100 experiments in a year will beat the genius who ran 3 and took them personally. Every single time. But there's one experiment nobody runs, and it's the one that changes everything fastest. Number 8. Audit your 5, honestly. You've heard that you become the average of the people around you. Fine. But nobody tells you what to actually do about it, because the honest answer is uncomfortable and slightly cruel. Here's the struggle. There's someone in your life right now, you already thought of them, who consistently leaves you smaller. Not evil. Not cruel. Just heavy. Every conversation is a complaint that goes nowhere. Every ambition you mention gets a small, gentle joke attached to it. And you leave those conversations with your dreams feeling a little more embarrassing than when you arrived. Most people fail here because they think the only options are keep them or cut them off. So they keep them, and they slowly become the average. But there's a third option, and it's the realistic one. Reduce the dose and add a voice. Reduce the dose, not a confrontation, not a speech, just less frequency and shorter duration. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your becoming. Add a voice. This week, find one person who is doing the thing you want to do, and reach out. Not to be mentored. That's too big an ask. Just one specific, honest sentence about their work and one specific question. Most people never send that message because they're afraid of being ignored. Being ignored costs you nothing. Not sending it costs you a relationship you'll never know you could have had. Your environment isn't the weather. It's a choice you keep making by not making it. Number 9. Take care of the body that carries the mind. I'm not going to give you a fitness lecture. You've heard them and you're tired of them. Let me tell you what this is actually about. Every ambition you have runs on a piece of hardware. Your judgment, your patience, your ability to not snap at someone you love, that's not personality, that's blood sugar and sleep. The bad decision you made last month? There's a reasonable chance it was made at 11 at night on 6 hours of sleep, and no amount of philosophy would have saved it. People fail here because they treat health as a project, something to complete, instead of the floor everything else stands on. So it becomes the first thing sacrificed when things get busy, which is exactly backwards. You cut your sleep to get more done, and then you do worse work for more hours and call it commitment. 3 things, today. A fixed sleep window, not a bedtime, a window, 7.5 hours you defend the way you defend a flight you already paid for. A 20-minute walk without headphones, where the only job is to let your mind finish sentences it's been leaving unfinished for weeks. And 1 meal a day you actually chose instead of one that happened to you. That's it. Not a transformation. A foundation. Because a house built on soft ground doesn't fall over dramatically. It just leans, slowly, for years, until nothing in it sits level. And there's one more habit, the one that holds all 9 together, and without it, they'll drift apart within a month. Number 10. Sit with yourself once a week and tell the truth. Here's the strangest thing about modern life. You will spend more time reviewing a restaurant than reviewing your own week. You'll analyze a 2-hour movie in more depth than the 7 days that just left and are never coming back. And so the drift happens. Nobody chooses to end up somewhere they didn't want to be. They just never checked the compass, and a 1-degree error over 10 years is a different continent. Most people avoid this because they expect the review to be a trial. They think sitting with themselves means listing everything they did wrong. So they don't sit at all, and they call it being busy. Here's how to do it so you'll actually keep doing it. 30 minutes. Same time each week, pick it now, Sunday evening is fine. 3 questions, in this order. What worked this week? What drained me? What's the one thing I'm avoiding? That third question is the whole exercise. The other 2 are warm-up. Because the thing you're avoiding is almost always the thing that would move you most, and it stays powerful precisely because it stays unnamed. Name it and it shrinks. Name it and it becomes a task instead of a weight. 30 minutes a week. 26 hours a year. That's the difference between steering and drifting. Music. Now let me tell you the thing that ties all 10 of these together, and it's not what you expect. You've been thinking about habits as things that produce results. Exercise produces fitness. Reading produces knowledge. And that's true, but it's the small truth. Here's the large one. Habits don't build your life. They build the person who builds your life. Every time you keep a small promise, you're not getting closer to a goal. You're becoming someone whose word means something. Every time you say no, you're not protecting an hour. You're becoming someone whose time has weight. Every time you sit with yourself on a Sunday, you're not organizing a week. You're becoming someone who cannot be moved without noticing. And that person handles opportunities you can't currently see, in rooms you haven't entered yet, with a steadiness you don't have today. You are not building a better schedule. You are manufacturing a better decision maker, and then handing them your entire future. That's why the small things aren't small. They were never small. So let me give it back to you, quickly. Win the first 11 minutes, before the world gets a vote. Make the promise small enough that you cannot fail. Survive the boring middle, because the hallway is the work. Protect 1 hour of your sharpest thinking. Disappoint someone today, on purpose, and survive it. Create as much as you consume. Take the word failed out of your sentence about yourself. Reduce the dose, add the voice. Take care of the hardware that carries everything. And sit with yourself once a week and tell the truth. 10 walls. 1 house. But don't start 10. Starting 10 is how you start none. Here's your call to action, and it's one thing. Tonight, before you sleep, put your phone across the room and write down the single sentence for tomorrow, the one thing that, if you do it, makes the day count. That's the first brick. Do it tonight, while this still feels like something. Because here's what I want you to carry out of this. Nobody is coming with a blueprint. There's no year where it finally gets easier on its own. The life you're going to have 5 years from now isn't waiting somewhere out ahead of you like a package in transit, it's being poured right now, and the choices so small you barely notice yourself making them. You are not waiting for your future. You are building it, today, with your own hands, in the dark or in the light, and that part, at least, is entirely up to you.